What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Just this morning, I was over on Facebook and I checked out the two expats in Mexico's Facebook page, and I saw that somebody posted a video called How Expats Ruin Countries. And that video was made by somebody called Life with Dave. Now, I really enjoyed this video, and if you haven't checked that video out, I highly recommend you check it out. I took away some stuff from that video that I want to discuss with you guys today and talk about my experience with what Dave was saying. So Dave goes throughout the video and he's giving examples about how expats ruin the various countries that they're in.
One, they went there without learning the culture. Just kind of took their culture from their home country and just brought it with them and said, you know what, I'm in this new country and I want my culture to be in this new country.
He, if I remember correctly, is in Colombia, but he also gives the example of Mexico later on in the video. He talks about how expats ruin the economy.
They didn't try to understand how much things really cost. They didn't try to understand the value of things, how much locals pay for certain things. They saw the prices and they compared it to how much things would cost back home.
Not only do they ruin the economy, but because the economy becomes ruined in the countries that they go to, they price locals out of their own countries and their own towns.
But what happens is, the locals who do that to the foreigners, they say, oh, well, great, let's just sell the houses to foreigners. Let's raise the prices. All these foreigners are coming to my country. What I would sell to a local for 40,000, I'm selling to a foreigner for 80,000. Let's all raise the prices. And then what happens? Now the locals who are making local wages can't afford to buy houses in that city. So what happens is they get priced out of their own city.
Now the reason why all this happens, according to Dave, is because the expats are not learning local customs. Now, before anybody gets triggered and start saying, you're not saying immigrant, you're saying expats. Yes, I am saying expats. But if you want to know my stance on it, you can check out this video right here. Dave says that expats don't learn local customs, and this is very true. What I've noticed is a lot of expats or immigrants, whatever you guys want to call them, they end up staying in bubbles and they end up hanging out with Americans. And most Americans, they have a lot of money because a lot of Americans are retired, right? So they come here to a cheaper country for them because it's not necessarily cheaper for the people living there. And they spend their money like crazy, and because they're throwing around big bills, the economy becomes inflated. The people from the country that they go to see that these people have a lot of money, and so sometimes the expats, sometimes they get taken advantage of, and sometimes things get inflated and all that stuff. I remember in one of my videos, I actually mentioned that, yeah, sometimes you get looked at as a bag of money when you walk around in other countries. Someone in the comments section from Mexico said, oh, we don't need your money, we had money before you came here. Well, with all due respect, you may not necessarily need our money, but that doesn't change the fact that when we walk around, expats, we end up getting charged more money because people know that we can spend more money and the currency is different. So we do get taken advantage of, regardless of whether or not you want to believe that or not. Something that Dave mentions in his video is tipping too big.
And a lunch back in the States would cost $15, $20, then you gotta add on tips, so you're walking out paying $27 for a lunch for one person. And in Costa Rica at the time, you probably can get a lunch for maybe $3 or $2. And they're like, whoa, this is crazy. So what would they do is they would leave a massive tip.
Now this is actually something that I am guilty of, and the reason why I'm guilty is because the Mexican people I've found in my experience are so beautiful, warm, loving, and kind that you just want to give back. And how else can you give back besides, what better way? What better way could you give back by leaving a huge tip, right? Well, after watching Dave's video, it occurred to me, because I've mentioned this to Brittany in the past, Joe, you're tipping too big. And because you're tipping too big, you're gonna end up skewing the way things work here. I know Maddie Gold has mentioned plenty of times, try not to change the place that you're living.
I typically try to follow Mexican customs or what the locals do.
And I've mentioned this to Brittany, and I think it's about time that I really slow down with that kind of stuff. You'll mention in the video the other day, I said, how much should we give this Sally, who was over there in the parking lot? 2 pesos, something like that.
Give him some money for helping us out of the spot.
Let him hit the cart back.
Yeah.
Can give him some money. Maybe we can.
Yeah, I'll give him some money. How much should I give him? Peso?
Maybe wait till I finish this.
Dos pesos?
Maybe those.
Normally I'm giving them like 5 pesos, 10 pesos. So I don't know if that's too little, too much. You guys let me know in the comments if you're familiar with tipping in Mexico. Give me your thoughts on it. And a great thing is that we have so many local friends that we can talk to that we'll be able to get a good idea moving forward what we should be doing. I'll give you an example. When me and my family were over in Guanajuato, Magic Town, we had 2 scams ran on us. Now this is a very touristic kind of a place sometimes, but it's also very, very Mexican. I remember at one point my mom went to buy some fried bananas, fried plantains, right? And my brother happened to overhear the price and he was like, what? Now my brother has lived here for like 3 years and the lady charged for fried plantains, a tiny little plate of fried plantains, the lady was charging what you can buy a bunch of bananas for, like an entire bunch. And my brother flipped out. Now keep in mind, my brother is also from a cheaper town. He's located over in La Piedad in Michoacan. And so he's from a cheaper place, but at the same time, he knew that my mom was being charged too much. The very next day, we had our sister-in-law, who is a Mexican from Mexico, go over to that same stand and the price was half what my mom was charged. So that just goes to show you what happens when you have expats come to the country. Again, you can't say that people, expats, don't get looked at for their money. I know that you have pride and you want to say, oh, we don't need your money. That's true. You might not need the money, but a lot of people take advantage of the fact that the money is different. The concept of money is different. I'll give you another example. In that same exact city, on that same trip, my wife wanted a soda. She went over to one of the local people on the street who were selling sodas out of their bin, right? They had a little cart, they were selling sodas out of there. And I told my wife, go over to one of them to support them because you go over to the OXXO and you're giving money to, yes, you're supporting the local economy, right? Obviously, because it's a store in Mexico, but you're giving to a big business, right? Give it to the local. So my wife goes over to the local. She asks how much it is. She comes back to me to get the money. Then she goes back over there and the price doubled because the woman who was at the stand originally was being honest. Her counterpart actually yelled at her for giving the normal price for the soda, and he doubled it. And when I found that out, I yelled at him and then we walked away. Because honestly, that's a really disgusting thing to do to somebody. That shows a real lack of respect. Now, that's not something that you see happen so often here in Mexico. I absolutely would not say this is something that is super common, but it will happen to you. If you come to visit here, you have to expect it. So knowing in advance is something that's really important. That's what videos like this and how expats ruin countries, that video from Dave, that's why these videos are valuable to you guys. Now here's some tips on how expats cannot ruin the country that they go to. Dave mentions have a local ask for local prices.
Learn the local prices. Learn what the prices should be. Don't let yourself get taken advantage of. The locals who take advantage of foreigners are at fault too. It plays both ways. But be a smart person. Be a smart immigrant to a new country. Learn the prices. Don't get taken advantage of and pay what you should pay. I'll give you a tip. If you're gonna buy property in a foreign country, make friends, local friends that you can trust. Have them call first to get the price themselves. They get the price, and then once you have the price, even if you want, have them negotiate for you. Have them negotiate the price down as much as possible.
Another tip that I want to add in is go beyond that to the best of your ability and don't buy anything unless the price is actually listed. I remember just the other day when we were in Guadalajara, my wife and I walked into a vegetable store. None of the prices were listed. We walked right out because prices are supposed to be listed in Mexico, right? And if they're not listed, you have room to be abused. Somebody might take advantage of you. So if you don't want to be taken advantage of, go somewhere where the prices are fixed. Whether that's through a sign, a scanning machine, whatever the case is, try to do your best not to buy things without prices. If you walk into a shop and there's no prices on anything, that person guaranteed is giving you a different price than they're going to give the next person. And they're going to get what they can get away with. Another way to try to avoid this is stop saying that everything is so cheap. So many people come to other countries that are cheaper for those people visiting, right? And they'll walk around and say, oh wow, look, this is so cheap. And they're saying these things in front of the locals. That does two things. That gives the locals the idea that, hey, we can charge more money. Because a lot of the time, the locals do speak the language, depending on what language you're speaking. And just because they don't tell you they speak the language, it doesn't mean they don't know. Most of the Mexican people that we've met speak incredible English.
Where are you from? You like Morelia? You came to visit over here?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
A lot of guys are moving over here.
Really?
Lot from all over the place.
Really?
And the next thing that does is that insults the people who are around you. Just imagine being in your country, trying to get by, barely making it, because unfortunately a lot of people in Mexico, not all, a lot of people in Mexico, they're not making tons of money. So you go into a store and you see that the food is so cheap and you're like, wow, this is so cheap, I'll get two, this is nothing. Meanwhile, they can't even afford one of what you're buying. So not only does it give people the idea that, hey, we can jack up our prices, but it's also insulting to the local people. When you run around saying everything is so cheap, when to them it's not cheap, it's a normal price or an everyday price or maybe even too expensive. Right now we're in Morelia, and the prices in Morelia are very, very reasonable when compared to so many of the other places that we've visited in Mexico.
I met a lady, she lives up here.
Uh-huh.
She moved about a month ago. She just grabbed her things and she moved down over here.
Really?
And she lives like, man, she has everything.
Wow.
And her money, her
Pension.
pension. Another guy, he bought 10 acres. It's a mountain area. Beautiful place.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Don't get me wrong, a lot of the places that we visited have been very reasonable, but these are even more reasonable than a lot of the other places. You got so many places out there that are gentrified and overrun with expats and immigrants, and yes, there is a difference, watch that video. And so the economy in that area is totally out of whack. I remember when we were talking to Wendy from Ajijic, she gave us a breakdown of what their housekeepers actually get paid over there. She mentioned that they get paid a lot higher than anywhere else in Mexico. And when the Guadalajaran people find out how much the Ajijic housekeepers are making, they get upset and they say, no, you're not supposed to be paying them so much. And Wendy actually acknowledged that yes, there is a good reason to pay them more, and that's good for those people, but not necessarily for the long run. Because what happens when they lose their job, they move on to another employer, now they're not getting paid as much because they're getting paid a normal wage, and now their whole entire lifestyle is out of whack. You want to come to another country and not change that country. Don't have that country become where you just came from, or else you're ruining it for the future and you're ruining it for the people in it.
Educate yourself, learn that, and let's not ruin the economy here. Let's not price out locals. Let's not make it harder for locals, and it's also not make it harder for us as immigrants to a new country where we price out each other.
I am a part of this, right? So I'm sure I've done some ruining too. You know, when you give somebody 20 pesos to do nothing, you know, basically do nothing, you know, hold a door open for you or something like that. Yeah, you're being generous, but at the same time, people start changing their mindsets on what money looks like. Learn when to tip, what to tip, how much to tip, what things cost, and learn it on a local level. Learn those customs, learn that language, do your best. I know that I'm trying to do that, and become a part of the culture and don't create a new one. Anyway, guys, hope this video helped. Be safe, talk soon, catch you all at the next video.